way. Talking with defenseman Cody Franson for today's IceHogs media today. Cody, thank you so much for your time. Let's walk through these last couple of games for you and how this season continues to unfold for you, sir. You now lead All-American Hockey League at defenseman in point production, a large chunk of that coming on the power play. Did you ever imagine in a scenario that you would be the leading scorer of a hockey club? And ultimately, halfway through the season now, how do you assess your season and how successful you have been?
Well, I mean, everything I did this summer was with the mindset of coming in to try and, put myself in a good situation to be successful. And, obviously I came in with goals in mind, and this was one of them, was to be in the top grouping or at the top of the league for defenseman scoring. I think it's something that I take a lot of pride in, shows that I'm still capable and, still a valuable piece in a team's lineup. So definitely something I take pride in. And obviously, our team's starting to figure things out as we go here. We're starting to play better as a group and make ourselves more competitive in games. So obviously, as the team improves, everybody else starts looking a little rosier.
And that was actually going to be my next question too, is that compared to where we were maybe about a month ago, this is a completely different looking at Rockford IceHogs team. You're seeing a lot of players elevate their game. Players are starting to get better and better as the season wears along. What do you think was the turning point for this team to really start seeing that success? Because now you're seeing guys like yourself, Wyatt Kalnick, Dylan McLaughlin, Chris Wilkie, a lot of big names that are improving, and ultimately the points and the goals are coming with it.
Yeah, I think, I think there was, with how young our team is, there was a real big learning curve at the start. We were in a situation where we had to do a lot of teaching, and with as complex as some of the systematic stuff can be, or whether it's guys that just haven't really seen stuff like that before, or it's their first time trying to really nail down details in a system. You never really know what type of situation guys are coming from, whether it be junior or college. So we have a pretty steep learning curve for guys, but now the guys are starting to get a handle on it a little bit. There's not as much thinking on the ice going on. Guys are starting to react a little more. We're starting to play a little faster and with a little more purpose in terms of flow to our game, if that makes any sense. We're starting to make ourselves a little easier to read for your line mates, and I think you see that with a little more offensive zone time, sustained forward checks, breaking out of our D zone, things like that's all starting to look a little cleaner and put ourselves in better situations in games.
And on the development side for you, maybe during practice or away from the rink, what's the last couple of weeks been like for you in terms of trying to rope everybody together, keep everybody on the same page? You're seeing handfuls of players going up, handfuls of players coming down, mixing and matching on the blue line for you especially. How is that role elevated for you, especially these last couple of weeks with so many guys going in and out of the locker room?
Well, I think, you just try and touch base with guys a little bit along the way. The young guys that are just kind of starting out, you're trying to see how they're dealing with things, how they're understanding systems. Is there anything they're having trouble with? You talk to them through the course of a game, maybe a little comment here or there helps clear something up for them and makes them think the game a little differently, puts them in better positions to make better plays. Obviously for myself, I'm used to having kind of the revolving door in terms of partners and things like that. So I always just approach it with the same mentality for whoever I'm playing with, just try and talk a lot, help themselves in games. And when guys that I'm playing with start to feel confident with the puck and know what they got coming and start making those nice plays, we start working, good as a pairing. We start putting ourselves in offensive situations a lot more, and the team starts, playing better as a group.
Mr. Scott Leber, your line is active, sir.
Hi, Cody. You've had so many productive seasons in your career, and here you are at 33 years old, I think, having a fantastic season. Can you kind of rate your level of play right now compared to some of your best years? Is this maybe your best year? Are you playing at the best level you've ever played at right now?
Well, I think I'm playing at a pretty good level. Do I think it's the best I've ever played? Probably not. For me, my kind of the most proud I've ever been of the level of play I got to is probably, in all honesty, the playoff round against Boston when I was in Toronto. I've had time to reflect on a number of years, and that was probably where I felt like I was playing my best hockey. Probably the most fun I've had playing hockey as well in that situation in that year, even though we did lose that round. That was probably the pinnacle for me. But I do feel, definitely more than capable. I still feel confident in what I can do out there, and I'm just doing everything I can to try and prove it to everybody watching.
You mentioned the playoffs. Typically right now we're about to head into April. We would be getting ready for the playoffs or making that final push to get in. Right now, we still don't know if there will be playoffs or not, but how much do you miss that motivation of that late push to either get in or go for that high seed? I mean, you don't really have that out there right now to chase.
No, yeah, it's definitely a different feeling, but at the same time, it's also an interesting test for guys individually. Even though there's no playoffs, there's a number of things at stake. For a guy like myself, I'm pushing to try and put myself in a situation to get myself another contract for next year. Show people that I can still, be a factor on the ice alone from in the dressing room or helping young guys or whatever that role might look like. Other guys that are in situations where they're trying to solidify their jobs here for next year, as opposed to maybe being in the coast or, there's a number of different reasons why guys can, push themselves to try and put themselves in good situations going into a summer. Obviously, the NHL rosters and stuff are going to look different next year. So guys need to be able to find motivation within themselves without needing that playoff push to be able to understand what's at stake for themselves.
Thank you.
Greg Boyson, your line is active.
Hey, Cody. You guys are in the midst of a 4-game set with the Wolves, who are the measuring stick in this division this year. I mean, granted, getting the pull from 2 teams helps, but that's a different subject. You guys have been close. Sunday you were right there. You're getting closer, almost, but still haven't been able to get over the hump and beating them. How big do you think that would be to know that you guys can get at the same level as the Wolves, considering the rough start to the season?
Well, I think our first game in the back-to-back that we just played kind of carried over from where we were when we faced these guys early on in the year. Early on in the year, we had a very green group. Everybody was still learning, and we got exposed in the fact that guys were still trying to figure things out. So we went into that first game. We were on our heels, waiting to see what was going to happen a little bit. Got down early and gave them too much respect. But look, in the second half of that game, I thought we, started to kind of get on our toes, not show as much respect, and made it a bit of a game towards the end. Even though we lost by 6-3, I think we played a much more competitive game in the back half of that. And then I think you've seen in the last game, guys were starting to believe in what we were doing was really going to be able to give us a competitive nature against a group like that. The Wolves are obviously a good team, but guys are starting to understand that the details that we talk about every day, and understanding that being predictable for your teammates creates flow in our system, which allows us to create more offensive zone movement and break out of our own end cleaner, which makes it tougher on them. And I think, even though we lost that last game, that was a bit of a confidence booster for us to know that we can play with that group. And also from a learning standpoint, I think, we didn't have a ton of mistakes in that game, but the mistakes we did make, they capitalized on. So it made guys understand just how much you have to pay attention to those details, and not really putting yourselves in situations to let the other team capitalize any more than you absolutely have to. A situation where 20, 30 seconds left in a period, we end up diving 4 guys deep on a rush to come back in a 4-on-1. They score to tie the game right there. That's a learning moment for us, understanding time management and how to close out a game like that.
Thank you.
Jay Taft, your line is active.
Cody, you guys have really been putting the puck in the net, as they say lately. What's been the difference? What's been the key for the little offensive surge here?
Well, I think, I've mentioned it a couple of times. It's about understanding the flow that we're trying to create with our offensive structure. Guys are starting to understand that making yourself readable for your line mates behind you creates us in situations where we're getting to the puck quicker, allowing ourselves to create some space from their defenders and start turning some offensive zone time and some quality chances, as opposed to kind of chasing it around and letting the other team break out because we're, maybe F1's too far ahead from F2 and 3, and it's just too easy for them to break out. I think what we're really trying to hammer home in practice times and video sessions is starting to pay off, and guys are starting to understand that simplicity goes a long way a lot of the time.
Is this just a very difficult season to kind of build an identity, or even have a certain style that you're going to kind of build from throughout the season, just with the flow of players and all the changes that are constant? Or is that what we're seeing? Are you guys starting to get that identity a little now?
I think it's a little bit of both. This one's been challenging for us in the sense that it really feels like we had to start from the ground up. A lot of the times you're going in with a lineup that's, decently balanced with some experience and some young guys and some guys that have been around a couple years and working their way up. Like, you kind of have that good mixture of guys that, you don't necessarily need to start from the ground up. Whereas this group, we were very young, and we really had to kind of put one piece in at a time and start to understand things. And you can only move so fast when you have to comprehend the stuff that is generally pretty simple to start with. So it's taken us a minute to get going, but we've always preached, a good work ethic can, mitigate a lot of mental error out there. So we've really tried to be a hard working group. But I think now with a lot of the changeover and stuff, guys have started to understand it enough that you're seeing us be competitive in more games consistently, and we're starting to build that identity that we're a tougher team to play against. I think, teams don't look at us as an absolute walk in the park right now.
Thanks, Cody.
Scott Leber, your line is active.
Yeah, Cody, you talked about some of the young guys on this team. Evan Barrett's one of them, and he's currently second, tied for second on the team in points. Just kind of want your assessment of Evan. What do you like about his game, or what do you see in his future?
Well, I think he's a great young kid, first and foremost. He's a great person, and that's always, a big thing for a guy like myself to see in a young guy coming up. He's a good kid. You can tell he came from a good place, and he's an honest, hardworking kid. Obviously, at the start of the year, he was like the rest of the guys. Everybody was still trying to figure out exactly what it takes to be a pro every day, and understanding that the little details go as far as they do. Sometimes in junior programs or college programs, you can get away with a lot of things and, kind of cheat the game a little bit that doesn't really show up. Whereas, at this level in the NHL especially, you get bit for that. So I think you've seen the details in his game tighten up a lot, and it's made him a quite nicely well-rounded player. And obviously he's starting to understand the flows of our system and putting himself in good offensive positions in the O-zone to be able to get looks at, pucks going down towards the net or rebounds or in good shooting positions. I think if you were to watch his tape, I think you'd just see that he's really starting to understand, his game personally and how it's transitioning into our system, and he's really starting to get comfortable.
Thank you.